Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
Welcome to the Catholic Mama, where you'll learn how to deepen and defend your faith, find comfort as we share the vocation of parenthood, and learn how to raise your children confidently Catholic. I'm your host, Christine Mooney-Flynn. Let's get started. Hello and welcome back to The Catholic Mama. I'm your host, Christine Mooney-Flynn, and in this episode, we are going to talk about how you can survive long car trips or plane rides with small children. So thank you for listening. If you are doing that in the early morning, the middle of the night, the afternoon, whenever, thank you. I am in the middle of preparing our household to go on our longest road trip yet. The longest and farthest. We'll be traveling 2,000 miles in about 3 weeks. And we have multiple stops. And this should be interesting. I mean, it's not that much farther than where we've gone before. But it's still something that you have to prepare for. And even though we've gone on these road trips to see family about 800, 700 miles. 700 miles usually is our 1,400 miles usually is our longest round trip. So we're adding about 600 extra miles this time. I think that's right. So it's not impossible because we've been doing this for many years. And it just takes some preparation and some preparing not only, activities and snacks or whatever, but also your mindset. So I want to share with you the many things that I've learned over the past 5 years of taking kids on big trips. Now, our oldest, we used to fly with him a lot when it was just him. Having one child is immeasurably easier than having 3, 5 and under, or more if you are blessed with more. So I think by the time he was 2, he had been on about 20 flights, and then I'm including, we have a layover someplace, we have to get on another plane, because it is the whole process over and over again. So he's on about 20 flights, and now we were actually just talking about this in the car, because I was explaining to the kids about our big trip that's coming up, and we realized that at least our oldest has probably been on, we go out to see my in-laws in Wisconsin. So that's however many miles that is. It takes about 14 to 18 hours of driving one way. And we usually do that in one day, and sometimes we'll stay over depending on everybody's mood and abilities to handle the car for that long. And I should also mention that we are traveling with a St. Bernard, who is very excitable in the car. So, I think my oldest has probably been on these road trips this far, maybe 10 or 12 times. And then we've been to see my folks in the South. I'm based out of Philadelphia. So we've gone to the South to see them a number of times. New York is pretty quick. So they've been there. No international flights yet. The longest flight that we've been on would be out to California, which we've done 2 times round trip. So 4 flights with the layovers. So I think I'm pretty well versed in getting families ready. Our little family ready to go on these big trips. This one in particular is just our longest stretch of being away from home. My husband has a few stops along the way for business. He has actually a book coming out in January called How to Be Better at Almost Everything by Pat Flynn. And so we have to stop off in Michigan on the first leg because he is doing the audio recording for the book, which I think is pretty cool. I guess they like the sound of his voice. He has a very nice voice, I should say. He's a podcaster and Catholic radio show host himself. So you can hear him either on his podcast, The Pat Flynn Show, or on WCAT Radio, as I thought you'd like to know show. So we have that first stop. And then off to the great state of Wisconsin for Thanksgiving, and then to Minneapolis for another bit of work for my husband. And I've never been to Minneapolis besides a little layover, so I'm hoping that we can find something. I'll be on my own with the kids for a day or two, figuring out what we can do there. So, long story short, we've got a lot of trips. We got the big trip coming up, and I've got a lot of trips under my belt that I know what to do. So whether you are traveling for Thanksgiving or Christmas or spring break or summer vacation, if you're doing it with small kids, it definitely seems like, long gone are the days where you are able to just pack a little overnight bag for a week's worth of vacation and be okay. Kids do definitely add a lot of extra stuff, but it doesn't have to be that much extra. So I will say the first thing that I am a huge fan of is making a list. I think I did a whole podcast once on making lists. I like to, in order to not underpack or overpack, I make a list for everybody. And realistically, we're lucky enough on this road trip that we're going on that we're staying with family for part of it. So I can do laundry very easily. And over the years, because we've been visiting the same house, my in-laws or my parents, I've had stuff shipped, like on the way. I'll be like, it's an 18-hour car ride. You got to do something. So shopping on Amazon, I can just send something like, oh crap, I realized we don't have a high chair for one of the kids. I'll send a booster seat there from Amazon. It'll be there tomorrow when we get there, or whatever it is. But first off, I like to make a list for everybody in the family. I pack for everybody, including my husband, because, that's just the thing I do. I feel like I have an engineer's heart when it comes to packing, so I like to fit everything in like a puzzle. Maybe it's controlling. Maybe it's controlling. I don't know. Anyway, so, but I pack for everybody. So make a list for everybody of what they need and what I know that I can either get wherever we're going or that it's already there. I don't bring. I just want to make sure that I'm not overpacking. I know at my in-laws' house, we have a lot of kids' clothing still. So I don't have to pack. We're going to be gone for 3 weeks. I don't have to pack 21 plus outfits for everybody. I'm only packing 5. But in order to make sure that I am packing the correct things, I say, okay, 5 pairs of pants, 1 church outfit, however many underpants, shirts, whatever. Just to keep things a little bit easier on myself. And so I don't have to sit there as I'm trying to pack for 5 people, picking things out, not sure if I've got everything right, if I have the right amount of outfits for everybody. It's just easier that way. So I love the list. I love the list. And also make sure, especially when it comes to toiletries and things that I don't want to have to buy because they're a little bit pricier, just making sure that I'm hitting every single one of the toiletries. And also little incidentals, baby monitor. It's such an easy one to forget. Baby monitor, or for whatever reason, I always forget sippy cups or whatever. So I like to just have everything listed out, and then I know. And then there's no guesswork. Okay, so you make your list. That's step 1. Step 2 is to adhere to your list. Don't start thinking, you're packing like, I really like this shirt, and this shirt's so cute for whatever small child you're packing for, and then suddenly you have doubled your packing. Packing with and traveling with small kids is hard enough. Do not overburden yourself with too much extra stuff. I got to say, I remember years ago making the realization as I watched parents haul out their giant strollers. They never looked happy. They're always just laden down and burdened with stuff. I'm a big fan of the umbrella stroller, so. But you would see they just look so miserable. They're hauling out these heavy strollers and they have all this, they're loaded down with stuff. And I got to say, the more kids I have, the more probably the less stuff I pack. I have more kids, but I pack less. I think it's because I've come to terms that I'm not always going to be prepared for everything. Most of those things that I would have been prepared for with a perfectly organized diaper bag in the past never happened in the first place. And then I've also realized that I have more experience now and can handle trying to figure it out on my own as we go, or rely on the kindness of strangers, because that has certainly happened as well when I did not have Kleenex on hand and somebody offered a tissue for my daughter's running nose at the park. Now, of course, I think that really just comes with experience, the unknown as a parent. So anyway, so make your list. and then stick to the list. Don't overburden yourself with a lot of stuff, because we still haven't even gotten on the trip yet. There's still all the meltdowns and the crying that can happen, and the stress of traffic or backed up security lines at the airport. So don't do that to yourself. So we've got the list. We've stuck to the list. Also, make sure that you're making a list, especially if you're traveling by rail, plane, boat, car, whatever. Make a list of food that you're bringing to, and have that prepared ahead of time. And actually make sure, and then put a Post-it note on your door or wherever you need to tell you to remember to bring the food. I spent a lot of time making these little finger food things for my son on one of our plane trips, and then completely forgot it. So it just sat there in the refrigerator for the week. It was a nice thought. So anything from whatever, if you're going to bring bananas or prepared sandwiches. I will say, now in our house, the kids don't have a lot of sweets on a regular basis. So because of that, it makes travel a little bit easier, because suddenly bunny gummies, Annie's bunny gummies or whatever they're called, become this huge treat, or little graham crackers become a huge treat. And you hold on to those and you wait until everybody's bored in the car. So you want food that is actually providing some real sustenance, and won't give people a sugar rush and a sugar crash and make them super grumpy. And for my husband and myself, a lot of times that's just even protein shakes or protein bars. The kids have been groomed to like those things as well, so it makes it easier for packing. And then we also have little treats that we hold on to until those moments when, we are stuck in traffic with no end in sight on the interstate, or there's or we're stuck on the tarmac for extra time. You just never want to be caught without food, especially for young people, because that can make or break an entire mood, and they will get very grumpy or fall on screaming very quickly. Even if, and also don't ever feel like you can't stop on the side of the road if you have to nurse a screaming baby, because it's better to have everybody relax, take the 15-20 minutes, whatever it is, and then keep going. So anyway, make sure that you have your food list and you stick to that as well, and you actually bring your food with you. If you have a pet that you're bringing, I always find it easier, especially for the days that we are traveling and we'll be in hotels. I have a Tupperware container with a lid. I have a Tupperware container with a lid that I have for water, another Tupperware container with a lid that I have for the food, and then just to keep it easy, I put each meal for the dog in a separate plastic baggie. And then I just either buy dog food when we get to the place that we're going to be staying for a while, or just pack everything in little baggies so you don't have to worry about scooping. It's just all right there, and then it's contained and contains the mess and all the crumbs and the slobber that inevitably happens, especially if you have something as large as a St. Bernard, which we do. I also make sure that the house is clean before we leave. I know that can be very difficult, but I have to make sure the house is completely clean before we leave, just so that it helps on the way back, knowing that I'm not coming back to a mess. It's easier to keep the house clean if you do it the day before, or maybe 2 days before. You just get everything done. I usually have a cleaning schedule that I keep where I just do one or two, tidy enough. But when it comes to right prior to trips, I do a big cleaning 2 days before. I also make sure everything is done in the car by like lunchtime the day before we leave as well. We leave very early. That's another a big point that I want to make. And handling your trips, if you're doing this with small children, and if it's possible, whether it might not be always easy with flights because you have to get down to an airport if it's far away. For us, it's almost an hour drive. But if you're going road trip, and I think all seasons parents will agree with this, go early or even go very late. There are times where we have left after bedtime and started the drive home and just driven through the night. Typically, though, we leave around 3:30 or 4 in the morning. So by the time everybody is starting to wake up and they're getting hungry, we are quite a ways into our trip, and we're ready for a stop too. really suggest that if you can, leave very early in the morning. And in order to leave very early in the morning, you have to have everything all set and ready to go the day before, not the night before, because that's too stressful. You want to be able to go to bed feeling as if you are as prepared as possible and you don't have to think about anything else. Which again is a great thing about lists, because if you have everything on a list, it doesn't have to stay in your brain. You can calm down, you can relax, try to get a good night's sleep, because you're going to need it. You're going to be all in the car all day tomorrow with kids. You're going to need that relaxation time at night. You don't want to be like rushing around trying to get everything done right before bed and then hoping, and without a list, hoping that you're going to be able to calm down enough to have a good night's sleep. So get everything done the night before, or the day before, I should say, not the night before. Do not wait until the night before to get the food together or whatever it is. If you are a working parent, this might mean actually taking an extra day off or leaving so that you have the weekend to prepare, or whatever it is that you need to do. Now we're on the road, so you get in the car. Well, what are the kids going to do? So that's another thing you have to prepare for. One, if you are leaving super early in the morning, you don't have to worry about what your kids are going to do at first, because they're going to be asleep. It's awesome. We have trained our kids to fall asleep in the car and stay asleep in the car. I know that is not possible for a lot of kids. We have several families who have said that their kids will never even fall asleep in the car. They're just awake. No matter how long the trip is, they stay awake. God bless you, because I don't know. The silence when all three of our kids and the dog are asleep in the back of the van is priceless. So we don't have to worry about what we do with our kids first thing, because they are sleeping since it's so early, or maybe so late, depending. But what I have done in the past, and I found that it does work, is especially now that I have a 5-year-old who is pretty good at least handling himself and the 3-year-old in the way back of the van. They sit in the far back, and then we have the baby in the middle row, and then one of the seats stays down, and that's where the St. Bernard, Lola, rests her big body during the trip, because she needs a lot of room. So my 5-year-old is really good about being in charge, and also my 3-year-old's pretty good too at everything. She might need some help opening things, but that's why I put the two of them together, because they can help each other reach things or whatever. If you look on Pinterest for activities for kids in cars, there is a lot of stuff that's out there, but it requires a lot of it requires a lot of preparation. You know, print things out, make things like busy books, felt busy books, which all sounds really cool and fun when you see it. But I got to tell you, you're probably not going to get more than 15 to 20 minutes at a time out of something like that. You put a lot of prep work into making. So to keep it easier on myself, fresh coloring books and fresh crayons. That's really all it is. Or just printables. Everybody gets a clipboard. They get a baggie filled with brand new crayons that's clipped to the clipboard, as well as coloring sheets, a bunch of them that I've printed out. And then fresh books that we haven't seen in a while. Or if you feel very bold that you can check out a book from the library and actually bring it back after a certain time, or after being out of state or wherever, you can bring library books that the kids have never seen. So just a few things that feel special and new that will keep them occupied. And for babies, it gets a little bit harder to occupy them, but hopefully that they're sleeping a good chunk of the time. I usually buy one toy that makes one new toy for everybody. And for the baby, it usually is one that, like a baby Einstein that has music to it. It makes a little bit of noise, but it's not obnoxious. I'm not a huge fan of noisy toys. We actually have like 2 of them in the whole house. I'm not a big fan of noise. I like quieter things, which is funny because I like loud kids. So I'm not really sure how that works, but everybody gets a new toy that's maybe $5, $6 before every big road trip. If we're just going up to New York, which is only a 2-hour road trip, no, they don't get anything really new or fresh for that. I'm talking about the big trips. They'll get something new. And then when they wake up, if they're waiting for us to stop for breakfast, they have their coloring clipboard with fresh crayons that they can just start coloring with. And also just that we don't have to stop and they're saying, I'm hungry and I'm not tossing things back. I set up their water cups and like a banana or something that they can. So I really make it as self-serve as possible in that way back part of the van for the older kids. Again, for the baby, it gets a little bit trickier, but now that she is eating solid foods, she can have little snacks. She likes these little coconut milk drops. I don't even know. I think they're called creamies. I don't really. I don't know. They have nothing bad in them, so I buy them. And then we stop for lunch or breakfast or whatever it is as we're going along, and we try to stop as little as possible. It feels like if you stop, you break the seal. So you go as far as you can that first round without everybody going crazy first bit, because people were asleep for a really long time. So stay in the car as long as you can that first amount of time. If you're on a flight, I'll talk about some flight airplane specific ideas in just a minute. So we have a fresh toy, fresh crayons, fresh coloring books, a couple fresh books, and also the favorites along with them, and then they kind of just occupy themselves. We do hear a lot of I'm bored. So if we get to the point where everybody's like getting real antsy, again, it's okay to stop. Everybody stretches their legs, run around at a rest stop for a minute. If you can't stop because of traffic or whatever, it's snowing outside, there's really nothing that you can stop at safely, that's where those treats come in. So toss back a lollipop or some gummies or fruit snacks, whatever it is. And if your kids aren't used to that, this is huge. I wouldn't throw back juice boxes because they're going to have to stop and go to the bathroom very quickly. But some kind of snack that they don't usually have that feels like a super awesome treat, but also isn't so big or so sugary that they are going to have that sugar rush and want to run around, and then that inevitable sugar crash when they get really grumpy and sour. So always keep that in your back pocket. Don't give those out too soon. There's been whole trips where we have not gotten to the point of needing those treats until we were stuck in rush hour traffic around Chicago, which is only like 2 hours away from our last stop of this trip. The same also goes for using electronics. My husband has a mortal fear of giving the kids his phone because he's seen the fingerprints and the messiness that my phone becomes. When I give the kids this, we also have another I can't think of what it is. It's made videos on it, but there have been full trips that we have never had the kids look at a video the entire time. We have trained them to become very content with not watching TV. Now, that's not to say that they will not love to watch TV if they are given that opportunity, but if we don't need to do it, we just don't, because it seems like they get wound up. It's awesome because they become very quiet while they're watching, but as soon as the electronics stop, their brains just go zzz, and they are crazy. So we try to minimize that as much as possible. And again, only give that out when it's really necessary. Like we are stuck in rush hour traffic around Detroit, or there is road construction and we are moving at a snail's pace for an hour and everybody's just feeling it. That's when we roll out those special things like the videos and the fruit snacks. So don't give away all the fruit snacks. So don't give away all your tricks at one time. Slowly give out the things that your kids are really going to like and feel special. Just give it time. Don't rush. And you also don't have to kill yourself on trying to prepare all these really fancy things that you see on Pinterest, because a lot of those things, which I used to do in the past, the kids only play with for 15 minutes, which isn't a lot in an 18-hour car ride. Don't do it to yourself. It's just one less thing that you need to worry about. Now, as far as eating out with kids, that's something that inevitably happens when you're on big trips. I did an Instagram post on this a while ago, and a lot of it comes down to setting expectations for yourself and for your kids. And I think the same thing needs to happen for road trips or plane rides or whatever it is. To say, once everybody's awake, if that's the case, to say, hey, we're in the car now. And you can even say this the day before, as they're, I don't know, excited before they go to bed, but maybe around lunchtime the day before. Say, hey, tomorrow, in a very soothing voice. Pat laughs at me because it sounds like my bedtime voice. Hello, we're just going to tomorrow we're going on a road trip. It's going to be a long time in the car. So we just, I say it very calmly. So just set expectations with your kids, even if they're babies. It's always good to have, the more communication that you can have with your kids about what's actually happening to them, they'll learn that. And then they'll come to realize that whatever's happening is not a big deal. We can handle it. Mom and dad's got it. They're talking us through it. So even to, this 4-month-old baby that you're bringing on a trip for the first time, talk them through the whole thing. You'll be surprised at what they hear, and they'll always appreciate more of your voice anyway. So simply explain that you're going to be in the car or wherever for a long time. This is what's going to happen. We're going to be going through these states. Maybe pull out a map and show them where they're going to be traveling. Tell them some interesting facts. And you can reiterate all of this once you're in the car itself the following day. And then if you're going on a plane, that's especially great to explain that, we're going to be having to wait in line. We have to stay in our seats. There's going to be a lot of other people around us. Just all these things that help set expectations. And you should be doing this anytime. Anywhere you're going. To a restaurant, maybe. Or to the doctor to get a shot. All these things. Set expectations with your kids. And then, don't forget to set expectations with yourself. Know that travel is stressful, usually anyway. You're out of your element. Things are different. You don't know what's going to happen necessarily as much as you can prepare. So take a breath. Say some prayers. Hail Marys are always great for calming me down. And then just understand that, and this is even a really good exercise to do with your spouse, if you're traveling with your spouse, so that you don't start nitpicking at each other. My husband and I have really come down on our nitpicking or straight up arguments since we've been doing this, which is saying, okay, tomorrow is going to be a long day. The dog is going to shed all over the car and get slobber everywhere. The kids are going to cry. There's going to be congestion, and it's just going to be boring at parts. The kids are going to be whining. We got this. We're going to have a nice time. Once we get there, let's just go as calmly as we can through this transitional travel process. And then saying some prayers and reiterating with your spouse that you're a team, that you're not fighting with one another. And that you're not opposing one another on this trip. I think that's very, very important, and something that every spouse, a couple, parent should do if they are traveling with another adult, even if it's, you're traveling with your mom or something with the kids in the back. Set expectations. Talk about it a little bit. Let's get really. And then when you're on the trip yourself, I found that my kids really are soothed by certain voices on the radio. Word on Fire podcast, Bishop Barron. For whatever reason, my kids get really calm when they listen to him. So, which is great because we love listening to him as well. So we'll keep some podcasts in the bank that we know that are soothing to the kids, or at least they are quiet enough when we're trying to listen to them. And also the Word on Fire ones are good too, because there are certain episodes where Bishop Barron answers questions from kids, and you can hear the kids' voices as they're asking the questions. So that's great too, because kids like to hear from their own. And even if they don't completely understand what the questions are, they're great, and they're actually a lot of fun for grown-ups to listen to as well. And just the same as with having the electronics and the kind of fruit snacks or treats that you're going to give your kids waiting on the sidelines, also have prepared some kind of kid music. We do not listen to kid music the entire way. There's no way. We listen to a lot of podcasts, audiobooks, and adult music. But we've also trained the kids to like things. They like AC/DC, so it makes it more fun for us too, that they even request rock songs. But we also keep kid music, especially for the baby ready to go. So just to give everybody a break and to feel like it's their time too, because they are part of this trip. They are co-travelers with you. You make compromises. So sometimes we listen to Sesame Street for an hour. And sometimes we listen to a podcast that the kids have no interest in, but hopefully they'll go to sleep during that time. And then when the kids finally do go to sleep, that's the time when mom and dad should or could even pray a rosary as you're driving along, listen to an audiobook or something that the kids would complain about if they heard, or just ignore the kids when they're complaining about something like that and tell them that they'll have their time later. Or even just talk about the upcoming trip, take some deep breaths together, enjoy the silence, enjoy the company. It's tempting nowadays as the passenger to just sit on your phone and look at your phone while somebody else is driving. Don't do that. Enjoy the company. Remember, it is a trip that you should be journeying through and enjoying, not something that you just have to get through. And I think if you prepare ahead of time by making lists, prepping food, making sure to bring the food, even the dog's food or the cat's food, whatever, having just a few special things that are easy to get together for the kids, and also not giving out all your tricks at one time, and then enjoying the silence when it does, and not feel like everybody in the car is in opposition to one another. These are some really important things to do. Now, real quick before we end, if you were traveling with a small child on an airplane, as I said before, I think one of the best things that you can do is talk through it beforehand. Tell them exactly what they can expect. And also, if, commiserate a bit. Yeah, I don't like waiting in lines either, but it doesn't take that long. This is just what we have to do. We're going to get to go on an airplane. You'll get to see all the clouds, or whatever it is. Make sure that they understand that some of it is not going to be fun, but that you do understand and commiserate with that. And then just explain what's actually happening, so they feel like they have some semblance of participation, because that's really important for kids. They want to feel that they are being included, and you should include them. They're part of your family, and we're all traveling together in this. If you were traveling with a baby, one thing that I found really easy and really helpful on flights is to mimic bedtime routine as much as possible during the taxi and takeoff time. So especially, this is great for breastfeeding moms. If not, this might work for bottle feeders, I'm not sure. But I always did with my youngest, or my oldest, when he was young, would be pick out some of the books that we always read at bedtime, bring them on the flight with us, bring his blankie. And then as we're taxiing, start to read him the books. And as we take off, when I feel like the ears might start popping, now we're getting into time to nurse, to sleep. And that really helped, because then he would stay asleep for the first hour and a half of a flight, and my arm would be asleep, whatever. It's fine. At least the baby's asleep. But because I mimicked as much as possible that bedtime routine with him, it made him sleep through a good chunk of the flight. And that really worked out for when we were flying to California. That's like a 6 or 7 hour flight from the East Coast. Do that with a baby on a flight. Awesome. And especially when that suckling motion will help with, if any of the ears popping or the pressure on the ears. And I'm sure that will help too with a breastfeeding baby. It would be the same. For older kids, that's a great time to have some kind of chewier snack so that they can, chew and pop their ears at the same time. But the procedures pretty much run the same. Have something easy to prepare and bring. Don't necessarily fall back on sugary treats or electronics right away, because it'll get their brains super wired and it'll be hard to sit still. And, let them have the window seat. All right. So thank you so much for listening. If you wouldn't mind, say a little prayer for us as we embark on this very long and far road trip in the next few days. 2,000 miles round trip and 3 weeks away. So say a prayer for me, if you wouldn't mind. And also, thank you very much for listening. If you haven't already, please subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. But also, if you're listening on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher, please take just 15 seconds, leave a review. It doesn't have to be long, but it just really helps boost the Catholic Mama in the search results on the podcast on those platforms. So help me spread this little ministry, because I'm doing this this is a labor of love. I spent years as being an atheist and being adrift. And now that I've found God and really having so much joy in that and being a parent, I want to spread this as much as I can. So if you wouldn't mind leaving a review. And also, as I said before, hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Until next time, I'll be talking to you from the road, I think. All right. Talk to you soon.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.